Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Joffy Noodle Legs here today. I'm here today with another music video. Now, you may remember a few weeks ago I did a selection of underrated albums. I really enjoyed doing that, and I got such a vast collection. It really got me thinking about what other albums do I think are really underrated, that I think people should be listening to, and if they listen to, they'd really enjoy. Um, so I'm going to do more underrated albums today, and I'll probably end up doing another one another time because I enjoyed doing it. So I'm going to do that today. So fasten your seatbelts because there's a number of albums in here. Just make a bit of space to put them so we won't waste any time. We'll get going. This one is from the 1960s, I believe, and this is the album by the Dubliners called "A Drop of the Hard Stuff." I really like the Dubliners. A lot of people think, oh, they're an old people's band, but they're not. They are actually a really cool folk band, and they were really popular around then. And they've done some amazing albums, and a lot of bands have covered their songs from Thin Lizzy through, so many bands have covered Metallica. All sorts of bands have covered the Dubliners songs, and they do some great songwriting. This is one of their early albums, and it's a really cool album. I love it. This is when Luke was in the band and he was a singer. Really cool. Dubliners, A Drop of the Hard Stuff. Right, next up we're going back even further, and we're off to Las Vegas for this one. We're off to the Sands Casino, and it's a live album. Sorry guys, just messing about with the cover. And this is Sinatra at the Sands. This is Frank Sinatra live at the Sands. It's fantastic. Really good live album. He's got some of his really sort of great back catalogue songs on this, and he does quite a bit of joking and talking between the songs. It's a really cool album. I do like Frank Sinatra. I think I own pretty much. I've got over 40 of his albums because I just really like his style. It's just really cool. So yeah, Sinatra at the Sands is in there as an underrated film. Listen to it. If you really only don't have any Frank Sinatra and you want to, so yeah, I'd love some of his. Don't always go for the obvious sort of like best ofs. Go for something a little different like this. Sinatra at the Sands. It's really good, and it's really good sound quality. Next up, we've got a post-punk band from the sort of 80s, and this is Back in the DHSS by Half Man, Half Biscuit. This is another really cool album. Their songs are really, they're very political, but they're sort of comical at the same time. And they write some really clever songs and really sort of like things you wouldn't expect them to write about, like Nearest Hughes, and they write about all sorts of things like this, Trumpton riots and all sorts of things. So Half Man, Half Biscuit, back on the DHS, really good album. Check it out. It's a good fun album, good listen, and it's got a sort of really post-punky sound to it. Next up is, I've spoken about these before, and I think they were on my last list. It's probably one of my favourite American artists, and this is called The Deserter Songs by Mercury Rev. Really good album. It's so fantastic. It's a beautiful album. It really is. Jonathan, the singer, his vocals are amazing. This was probably I think about their third or fourth album, and it's a little bit of their breakthrough album. It's got songs in it like Holes, and some of their singles are on here, which for the life of me I can't remember. This is really cool. It's got an extra disc, and they do a few cover versions of that, some John Lennon songs. So yeah, the Deserter Songs by Mercury Rev, really cool. Next off to a British sort of folk band now. This is quite a recent album. It's not too old of an album. It's called Beachcombers Windseal, and it's by Stornoway. Again, they've got some really good melodies. That they're sort of like the multi-vocal group. Their vocals, like all of them, sort of sing, like the Beach Boys, like that. And when they sing together, they harmonise. It's such a really cool sound, and they sing with like a real sort of traditional, sort of British sort of sounding voices. It's really cool. If you're into like your modern sort of folk bands like Skinny Lister and things like that, you need to check out Stornoway. They're absolutely fantastic. Next up is one of my favourite artists, favourite singers and pianists and whatever you want to call him. He's done about, I don't know how many albums now, 10 plus. And this is Duke Special. Wow, this album is great. This is called The Adventures of a Gramophone. Really good album. And what he's done, he's sort of covered songs that were on gramophones, the old 1920 songs. And his vocal style is brilliant. He's got such a powerful voice. I've met him a few times now. They're Irish band. Met him a few times now because they played locally down here in Halifax, and I've met him at Beautiful Days Festival and things, and really nice. And I've had me photos of him a few times. Really nice chap, and such a good band. Duke Special, a really underrated band. I'm gonna probably do a video on this band because I think they need a bit of a shout out, to be honest. Duke Special, really cool. Adventures of the Gramophone. We're still in Ireland for the next artist. This is Neil Hannon again and the Divine Comedy, and this is a live album. And this is live at the Summer House. I think it's at Somerset House. Yeah, this one is just pretty much Neil Hannon on his own, the piano, performing Divine Comedy songs. But it's such a good set list, and it's so listenable and enjoyable. I had to put it as an underrated album, just because it's so good. Such a great album. And again, I've met Neil a couple of times, and again, he's such a lovely chap. This is double CD, really cool. It's got a few of their sort of famous songs on there. Song of Love, Becoming More Like Alfie, and National Express, and all that sort of thing. It's all on there. It's a great little live album, and it's live at Somerset House. I've just noticed, yeah, he's signed that for me. I only just noticed. Anyway, that's cool. Next up, we're staying with the folk theme, and we're going back to Ireland, and this is Christy Moore, and this is called Live at the Point. This is such a good album. As live albums go, this has got to be in my top 10 favourite live albums of all time. So there is something else I need to do. Top 10 favourite live albums. This will be in there. It's such a good album. It's such a great listen. He's fantastic. He's funny. His songs is great. He does an amazing songs on there. Really good album. Please check out Christy Moore live at the Point. Really good album. Next up, we're going to 80s to a Scottish band. Unfortunately, the singer's no longer with us. He committed suicide, sadly. I seem to like bands where people seem to do things like that. I don't know why, but I went to see these back in the day. They were supporting somebody, and they were really cool. And this is a band called The Associates, and this is an album called Sulk. Really good album. It was really. I remember them being on top of the pops of a couple of songs off this album, Party Fears 2 and things like that. And it was they were so different. His vocals reminded me a lot of Sparks, and I just thought, oh, they had that sort of feel about them, which I really like, because I love Sparks. I really do. I just looked at the next album. So I just thought, yeah, I love this, and it's a really good album. It's so underrated. It's such a good album. Yeah, so if you get to check out any of the Associate stuff, Sulk is the album. And as I was saying about Sparks, they're in here again. This is it Komodo in the House? I think it's called that. This, I think, is their first album. This is mid-70s, this album. This contains their sort of first hit, The Town Ain't Big Enough for the Both of Us. What a great band. Really cool. And I bought, not so long ago, you might have saw it in my pickups video, I bought a Blu-ray of their documentary movie that was being made about them. So I'm going to give that a watch soon, and I'll do a review on that. But this is an amazing album. I can't describe Sparks to you. They're not like, I don't know, they're not like anything. It's like if Queen, some of the members of Queen and members of T-Rex got together and played the Rocky Horror Show soundtrack, you'd probably have something like Sparks. It's bizarre. They don't sound like any. They're so unique, and that's why I love them. And they've been around for so long. They really have, and they're still about today. Really cool band, Sparks. Please check that out. Bit of a classic one now that no one really talks about. Um, and I think it's great. And it's from the Rolling Stones, and it's Goat's Head Soup. I do love the Rolling Stones. I think they're an amazing band. They've done some corking albums, and this is one of my favourites. And it doesn't get a lot of love for some reason. Everyone seems to like the same sort of albums like Let It Bleed and things like this, and this one gets sort of like put aside, and I really like it. I think it's a really cool album. It's got a couple of their sort of famous tracks on there, like Angie and Wild Horses, and that on there. It's a really good album. Check that album out if you haven't got that one. Next one is another sort of a sort of folk singer with sort of Johnny Cash sort of sound to him, and this is now by Rev Hammer, and this is called The Bishop of Buffalo, and this is a real sort of really sort of folky album with violins and stuff. If you're a fan of the Levellers, you probably already know Rev Hammer because he wrote most of the songs on the Levellers album Level in the Land, and this is his album. Some of the members of the Levellers I think are on this. Um, it's a good little album, to be honest. It's really cool. It's not my favourite of his. He's done a couple of others that are really cool. But this is a good album, and it's a good starting point if you've never listened to Rev Hammer. So this is in there as an underrated album. I'm going right back now to sort of like the 1920s, 30s and 40s with this guy. He's a playwright, and he also writes amazing songs. And this is the songs of Noel Coward. Absolutely love Noel Coward and his songs. I just loved that sort of that 1920s Englishman sort of style and that sort of music. And these songs are, some of them are from some of his plays, and some he just wrote songs. And you probably heard some of them. A lot of people have covered some of them, like A Room with a View and things like that. And so this is a great album. Really cool. If you don't know anything by Noel Coward, this is the one to get. The songs of Noel Coward. Right, we're getting there, guys. Are we halfway through? We're just over halfway through. I did a top 10 on this guy a week or so ago, and I wanted to include one of his albums in there because I think it deserves a shout, and that's Dead Bees on the Cake by David Sylvian. This is such an underrated album. It's I don't know why. I do not know why this guy is just such an underrated artist. I don't get it. You know, it's amazing. He's incredible. There's no one like him, and he's so talented, and his music's perfect and beautiful. I don't understand why people are just not listening to David Sylvian. Dead Bees on the Cake is a really cool album. It's after his first sort of like solo albums, and um, so he's sort of well cleared of the sort of Japan sort of image and everything. And this album is really cool. It's such a really diverse sounding album, and it's amazing. Dead Bees on a Cake. Please check it out. Got a bit of a different album now. These are kind of like a rockabilly, bluegrass, sort of country sort of sounding band, and these are the Bournville Barons, and this is Cures at What Ails You. Cures What Aids You, I think it's supposed to say, but it's a duel, but they're really good. This is a really cracking little album. If you like a sort of rockabilly album that's got that sort of authentic sound, um, with a bit of sort of like a country feel to it, this is the album. Really cool album. It's a great listen. It's like just a guitarist and a slap bass. Really cool album. Check that out. It's really different listen. You know I like things that are a little bit different sometimes. Like in my last one, I had a few albums in there that sort of a bit jazzy, some were a bit sort of bluesy. You know, I like a good mixture of music on my thing. So a bit more mixture. We're going back to some sort of Americana sound, and this is the Whirlpool Will by Blackberry Smoke. I love this album. It's a really cool album. It's definitely an album for fans of people that might like the Black Crowes and that sort of sounding album. It's got that sort of American sort of country sound to it, you know, like Leonard Skinner, that sort of sound. So if you're into that, Blackberry Smoke is the thing for you. Really cool album. Great listen. Going to someone else now who's no longer with us. This is a great album. This one. This hasn't got a title, and this is by Mark Hollis, and it's just called Mark Hollis. This was Mark Hollis. This is his only sort of solo album. He used to be in a band called Talk Talk. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But what a voice, and what an album! Again, his music is quite eclectic. It's difficult to listen to. You've got to be in the right space for it. There's little influences, sort of like modern jazz in there, and sort of like really look can sound a little bit out of tune to the untrained ear. Um, so it's not an easy listen, but it's a great listen. I find it quite interesting. You know, like things like Herbie Hancock from the jazz world, his music can be quite difficult to sort of listen to. Well, his is like that in the sort of alternative sort of music scene. So, but it's a great listen. That's Mark Hollis is a solo album. Check that out. Getting near the end now, guys. Back to America with a sort of funky grunge band, I'd call it. And this is Sailing the Seas of Cheese by Primus. These are a really cool band. I've seen them a few times. Les Claypool is probably one of the greatest bass players I've ever seen. He's fantastic, and they're quite humorous as well. Really, really cool band. Um, they sort of became popular in the sort of in the 90s and the early 2000s. They got sort of pulled in with that sort of grunge scene, and some of the sort of funk metal bands were bound like the Chili Peppers. I cannot abide Red Hot Chili Peppers. I just think they're awful. But Primus are fantastic. These are a great, great, great band. It's got some great tracks on here. Tommy the Cat features Tom Waits on vocals, which is really cool. Really good album, and it's got Jerry was a race car driver on it as well. It's really cool. Different sort of band now. These are another sort of different band to describe. I got into these when I used to work at Our Price. So this came out, must have been about the really early 90s or the end of the 80s. But this came out, and this is Belly Button by Jellyfish. Um, Again, it came out on the back of the sort of grunge scene that was coming out at the time in the 90s. And these were like nothing I've ever heard. It was like a mixture of ELO and Queen with a sort of more grungy sort of feel to it, with maybe a bit of Wings in there. And they just sounded really, really cool. And this is a really, really great album. Such an enjoyable listen. Jellyfish by, Belly Button by Jellyfish. If you get a chance to hear that, if you're a fan of Queen and things like that, I would definitely check that out. It's a really, really cool album. Really good. The next one, I've got two left. This next one's a comedy album. And it contains some sort of spoken word comedy jokes and some sort of and some sort of a folk singing acoustic, because it's Mike Harding. This is his album Comic Cuts. Now he's a sort of a northern comedian, and he tells quite a few jokes about his childhood in this one, and there's quite a few sort of songs in there as well that he wrote. This came out. I brought this when I was a little boy, when I was about 11, 10 or 11. I had this album. I brought it from my local record shop, and I played it and I played it and I played it because I was really into comedy records back then. I used to have Billy Connolly records and all these sort of comedians, and Mike Harding was one of my favourites. And this album I remember very, very well, the Comic Cuts. It was so cool. I liked it because of the cover, because it was like the Beano, and I just thought, wow, that's so cool. And the actual album is so funny. It is so funny. There's one sketch when he's going to a party and he's really drunk and stuff. Oh, it's just hysterical. Um, Comic Cuts, Mike Harding, really underrated. So last but not least, we've got an album called Stoned and Dethroned, and it's by the Jesus and Mary Chain. Now, Jesus and Mary Chain are renowned for doing like sort of post-punk feedback, overloaded sort of records, a bit like the Black Motorcycle Club and stuff like that. You know, they're really sort of rock and roll overloaded with feedback. This was completely different. This was more of acoustic sound for them. They sort of ventured away from that sound on this album, and it was fantastic. It still had their vocal style on there, that sort of Beach Boy sort of sounding vocal style on there, but it just sort of edged away from that heaviness, and it came with a sort of a little bit Americanized sort of sound to it, but it was such a refreshing sound, and I think it's so underrated. I mean, everyone loves their early albums, Psycho Candy and Darklands and Automatic and all these really cool albums, but this one I really, really like. I think it's just a step away for something a bit different. There you go. There's another bunch of albums for you to listen to, and I will do some more because I'm enjoying them. If you enjoy them, awesome. If you don't, then watch another video. But I hope you do. I hope you take something out of it. I hope you think, yeah, do you know what? I really like a lot of these albums. They're really, really cool. A lot of these bring back so many memories of bands that I've seen. Seen with a lot of these sort of bands I've seen with my best friend Rob and that. So it's there's a lot of memories and a lot of bands, and I will be doing some more because there's some bands I want to talk to you about, like the Bonzo Dog Doodah band and things like that. And I want to show you some great, great albums, some more metal. I mean, I do like some metal, guys. It's not that I don't like it. I'm just not into things like Metallica and things like that. It's just not for me. Um, I'm not a fan of Metallica. Um, I, I really don't like the singer because he does a lot of sort of blood sports and that, and I don't like that. Um, but I do like a lot of metal, but a lot of it is more around the sort of hardcore sort of metal stuff, like sick of it all, and bands like that, Madball, and all the sort of hardcore sort of like New York bands. That's the sort of metal I like. It's got more of a punky feel to it. But I will include some of those in some later videos, guys. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed these. I hope you like some of these. If any you want to know any information about any of them, comment down below and I'll send you some information. And hopefully I'll try and send you any links to some of the albums if you can't find them, if I can find them. But anyway, guys, till next time, you look after yourselves. You all look after one another. And I really hope I'll see you all soon.